right? The Bible contains stories about gods, plural, having children with human women, right? Genesis chapter 6 describes divine beings descending to mate with humans, right? The same book that declares the Lord is one also depicts Yahweh presiding over a council of other divine beings. This isn't a contradiction to explain away, it's evidence of something fascinating about how the Bible was written and who wrote it, right? Scholars distinguish between two categories: Israelite-Judean religion and biblical religion. The first describes what ordinary people practice. The second describes what later editors wanted them to believe. Right? Think of it this way. If future historians only had official government documents about 21st century America, they miss what people believe and practice in daily life. Right? The Bible gives us the official version, but traces of popular practice leaked through. 熊挖苦但 says, archaeology reveals the gap between official religion and the popular practice. Household idols and fertility goddess figurines appear throughout Israelite homes. Worship practices look nearly identical to Canaanite neighbors. This brings us to a crucial term: monolatry. Monolatry means worshiping one god while acknowledging others exist. It's like being loyal to one sports team while admitting other teams are real. Early Israelites practiced monolatry, devoted to Yahweh, but not denying other gods. Monotheism, believing only one God exists, came later. The textual evidence is striking. Genesis 6 preserves divine beings mating with humans, a polytheistic motif the editors kept. Psalm 82 opens with God standing in a divine council, judging other gods. The Dead Sea Scrolls version of Deuteronomy 32 describes the Most High dividing nations among the gods, with Yahweh receiving Israel as his portion. Right? These passages don't fit strict monotheism. They preserve older beliefs, monolatry, where Yahweh reigns supreme among real divine beings. Right? Compare these older passages with later monotheistic declarations. Genesis 6's divine beings contrast with Genesis 1's God creating alone. Psalm 82's divine counsel contrasts with Isaiah 45, I am the Lord, there is no other. Deuteronomy 32's division among gods contrasts with Deuteronomy 6, the Lord is one. Right? The Bible contains both voices, older polytheistic elements and the later monotheistic frameworks, sometimes in adjacent chapters. If early Israelites weren't strictly monotheistic, how did we get the Bible we have today? Monotheistic circles emerged perhaps as early as the 8th century BCE. These were likely educated, literate elites, a minority movement. Right? They edited older traditions, adding monotheistic frameworks to ancient stories. Genesis 1 was likely added in the 6th century BCE as a monotheistic overture to older creation myths. The editors placed their theology first, framing everything that followed. Biblical monotheism wasn't just Israel versus neighbors, it was a civil war within Israel itself. Right? The prophets who condemned idol worship weren't fighting foreign influence, they were fighting popular Israelite practice. Right? The monotheistic editors won, their version became authoritative, but they couldn't or didn't want to erase all traces of older beliefs. The result, a polyphonic text, right? Multiple voices speak, sometimes contradicting each other. Right? The contradictions aren't editorial failures, they're evidence of the text's complex history. Later, monotheistic texts don't just say one God, they describe a qualitatively different deity. This God has no origin story, no divine siblings, no cosmic rivals, absolute sovereignty, inherently moral. This God makes moral demands on worshippers, hence the term ethical monotheism. The development wasn't just numerical, from many gods to one. It was conceptual, a fundamentally different understanding of what divinity means and what it requires. What do you do with this knowledge? First, stop forcing consistency where the text is inconsistent. The Bible preserves multiple perspectives across centuries. Second, learn to recognize older material versus later editorial additions, different vocabulary, different theology, different assumptions about the divine. Third, understand why scholars distinguish between early and late biblical sources. These aren't arbitrary academic categories. They reflect real differences in when texts were written and what their authors believed. Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 demonstrate this layered reading. Genesis 1, written around the 6th century BCE, uses Elohim for God. God is transcendent, creating by speaking. Humans, male and female, created together at the end. Genesis 2, older tradition, uses Yahweh Elohim. Right? God is immanent, forming with hands, walking in gardens. Man created first, then plants, then animals, then woman. Right? Different names, different creation orders, different theologies placed side by side. They reveal the editorial process, later monotheistic framework placed before older narrative. Notice what this approach doesn't do. It doesn't claim the editors corrupted an original message. The evidence suggests monotheism came later, not earlier. The editors were adding monotheism, not removing it. It doesn't dismiss the text as unreliable. The text reliably preserves evidence of its own development. It doesn't attack faith. Many believers find this history enriching, understanding how the scriptures developed across centuries of reflection and revision. The Bible's contradictions aren't bugs, they're features. They reveal a text shaped by centuries of practice, belief, and editorial revision. Monolatry preceded monotheism. Popular practice differed from prophetic ideals. Editors framed older stories with newer theology. The polyphonic result preserves multiple voices from ancient Israel, not a single consistent message, but a conversation across centuries. Reading the Bible with this awareness transforms it from a flat document into a layered archive of religious development. Next time, Genesis 1 itself. We'll examine how Israelite editors transformed Mesopotamian creation myths into something radically new. Same raw materials as the neighbors, chaos waters, divine speech, cosmic order, but a revolutionary theological vision. The creation story you think you know has a history worth discovering.